Chapter 61. As a deafening silence descended upon the office, Jenny and Baldy stared at the calm Jared. Slowly, a sense of dread began to creep into them. "Sir, do you think he was speaking to Mr. Lewis over the phone just now?" Jenny asked softly. Baldy didn't answer because he didn't know what to say. The voice over the phone did sound like Tommy, but this kid looks so young and doesn't dress like someone rich at all. So how is it possible for him to know Tommy and even speak to Tommy in such a condescending tone? In response to Baldy's silence, Jenny had no choice but to console herself. There's no way Mr. Lewis knows someone like that. Hence, he must be putting up an act. Besides, the person on the other end of the line can't be Mr. Lewis, as no one in Horrington would dare to speak to him in such a tone. Agreeing with Jenny's assumption, Baldy nodded in response. "Kid, stop pretending in front of us. Given how pathetic you look, there's no way Mr. Lewis knows you. How dare you use his name to fool us? You will pay for it with your life," Baldy roared. After giving Baldy side-eye, Jared ignored him with a smirk. "Sir, you should give Mr. Lewis a call and tell him to take care of this troublemaker. Also, you can find out if he was really speaking to Mr. Lewis just now," Jenny suggested. Nodding in agreement, Baldy took out his phone and was about to give Tommy a call when it suddenly rang. Coincidentally, Tommy had called first. Baldy answered the call at once. "Mr. Lewis." "Baldy, what did you do to offend Mr. Chance? Just you wait. I'm coming over right now. You can forget about running Moonlight Bar forever. If you have the guts to flee, you can go ahead and try. We'll see if I'm able to track you down." The moment he answered the call, Baldy was stupefied when Tommy's thundering voice echoed through the phone. The truth was now obvious regardless of how much he refused to believe it. Not only had Tommy spoken to Jared earlier, but he was also addressing him respectfully as Mr. Chance. Crash! Baldy dropped his phone onto the floor, smashing it into pieces. Gawking at Jared, he dropped to his knees with a thud. Equally shocked, Jenny quickly followed suit. "Mr. Chance, Mr. Chance, I'm sorry. Please forgive me." Baldy groveled at Jared's feet. However, Jared couldn't be bothered. Instead, he was transferring his spiritual energy to Hilda so that she could regain consciousness. The drug Baldy had used on Hilda was so strong that Jared had to expend a significant amount of his energy before she could gradually open her eyes. "Jared!" Hilda called out in remorse the moment she saw Jared. After all, working as a hostess at a bar wasn't something to be proud of. "Hilda, are you feeling better? Let's leave this place," Jared suggested softly as he helped Hilda up from the couch. Hilda nodded. Suddenly, when she noticed Baldy and Jenny kneeling on the ground, she was shocked. She didn't understand why they were doing so, and wondered if it was because of Jared. She gave him a puzzled look. To her, he was only an ordinary person, an ex-convict, and nothing more. "Let's go." Nonetheless, Jared didn't explain as he led Hilda out. Chapter 62. Back in the bar, Tommy had arrived with his men and chased out all its patrons. As for the staff, all of them were huddling in a corner and squatting on the ground. When Hilda saw the large group of armed men, her face turned pale in fright. Tightening her grip on Jared's arm, she began to shiver slightly. "Don't be afraid," Jared reassured her. When Tommy saw Jared, he wanted to approach him to talk. However, Jared quickly stopped him by giving him a look. He didn't want Hilda to know that he knew Tommy. After all, Tommy didn't have a good reputation in the eyes of the masses. If his parents found out that he was hanging out with Tommy, they would definitely be outraged. Grasping what Jared meant, Tommy waved his hand for his men to open up a path. Just like that, Jared left with Hilda in tow under the watchful gazes of tens of men. The moment they reached the bar's entrance, an agonizing cry rang out from inside the bar. Moreover, they also heard sounds of the place being thrashed. After hailing a taxi, Jared went home together with Hilda. On the way back, Hilda glanced at Jared and wanted to explain herself. Somehow the words just wouldn't come out. In the end, Jared asked first, Why are you working in such a place? Keeping her head low, Hilda rubbed her palms while biting down on her lip. It took her a while before she answered. Jared, can you keep it from my mom? She will be furious if she finds out about that. Jared nodded. After collecting herself, Hilda continued. Currently, I owe a debt of $1 million in a high-interest loan. If I don't work in a place like this, there's no way I can repay it. When that happens, they will demand it from my mom. Just as Hilda explained herself, tears began to stream down her face. How did you end up deep in debt? Jared furrowed his brows as he asked. Due to her poor family background, she has always been thrifty since she was young. So, how did she end up owing so much money? Hilda's sobs intensified at Jared's question. Teary-eyed, she explained. When I was in university, I had a boyfriend who was 2 years older than me. He was my senior. After graduation, he used my name to take the loan so that he could start a business. But after he got the money, I wasn't able to contact him anymore. When Hilda finished, Jared quickly realized that she had been scammed. At that moment, the taxi driver couldn't help but sigh. Girls nowadays are just too naive and trusting of others. $1 million is a lot of money. Just 2 days ago, I heard that a girl had taken her own life because of her high-interest loan. Hilda, don't cry. I'll help you think of a solution to repay the debt. Jared patted her on her shoulder. Lifting her gaze, Hilda looked at him gratefully. Jared, I'm aware that you have just been released from prison and don't even have a job. In this case, how are you going to help me? Just don't tell my mom, and I'll figure it out myself. Don't worry, I won't do anything stupid. If anything happens to me, my mom will definitely not be able to live on. Smiling slightly, Jared didn't say anything further. Nevertheless, he resolved to help Hilda out with her high-interest loan. As of then, he still had the card William gave him, and it contained $10 million. Even if he needed more money, he could get it from Tommy. After all, the entire Templar regiment belonged to him. When they arrived home, the taxi driver refused to accept the fare. Instead, he smiled at Hilda. Miss, don't worry too much. Everything will be fine. With that, the taxi driver drove off. Watching the taxi leave, Jared was relieved to know that there were still kind-hearted folks in the world. Chapter 63. When Jared brought Hilda home, he realized Chloe was still at his house chatting with his parents. Initially, he had planned to let Hilda regain her composure before sending her back. But now, they had been sighted. The moment they saw Jared and Hilda coming home together, Chloe and Gary were surprised. Only the blind Hannah was oblivious to what had just happened. She asked, Jared, are you back? Why did you come home so late? Gary quickly gave Hannah's hand a tug. Jared is with Hilda. They have returned together. Gary was all smiles when he spoke. After Hannah heard Gary's words, her face lit up in delight. Jared, you could have just told us that you were going to see Hilda. There's no need to be so secretive about it. Are you trying to give us a surprise? Just when Jared tried to explain, he realized he didn't even know where to begin. Only Chloe noticed that Hilda was looking out of sorts, as if she had just cried earlier. Knitting her brows, she asked, Hilda, did you have to work late? Why did you cry? Moreover, you reek of alcohol. Bombarded by Chloe's questions, Hilda panicked and was lost for words. Mrs. Wallace, Hilda wasn't working overtime. She just went drinking with her colleagues. However, some of them were trying to get her drunk. Luckily, I happened to be there, so I brought her back instead. Jared quickly cooked up a story. The moment she heard it, Chloe got to her feet and checked Hilda's body. With a concerned look in her eyes, she complained, What kind of colleagues are they? How could they make you drink when they knew you have low alcohol tolerance? They went too far. When she saw how worried her mother was, Hilda couldn't contain her emotions any longer. Hugging Chloe, she burst into tears again. Chloe comforted, Hilda, if you're unhappy at work, why don't you just quit? Especially since you have terrible colleagues. Chloe thought that her daughter was feeling indignant after being bullied by her colleagues. After all, Hilda had just started work recently and was considered new. It was common for newcomers to experience such treatment. Hilda, stop crying. At most, you can just quit your job. Tomorrow, Gary is going to get a friend to help Jared find a job. Why don't we ask around for you too? Since you're a university graduate, it shouldn't be difficult to find a job, Hannah quickly reassured Hilda. Gary added, I'll ask him about it tomorrow. It shouldn't be a problem because he's an old comrade of mine. The more everyone consoled her, the harder Hilda cried. Unfortunately, only Jared knew the real reason why she was crying. Powerless to do anything, Chloe had no choice but to take Hilda home. Jared, you should sleep early too. Tomorrow we'll take you to Mr. Saunders' house and get him to find you a job. We'll also ask him if he could help Hilda land a job. She really has it tough. Hannah sighed before she continued. You should treat her better instead of bullying her. The man Hannah spoke of was Franklin Saunders. He used to serve in the military together with Gary. Ever since they were discharged from the military, Gary went on to work as a civil servant, while Franklin used his pension to start a business. As of then, he had done well for himself and was living a good life. Mom, Enough. Go to sleep now. Not bothered about what Jared had to say, Hannah walked right off. Jared was in a dilemma. He had always treated Hilda as a sister and never had romantic feelings for her, but now he had no idea how to break it to his parents. Shaking his head in resignation, Jared returned to his room. For the time being, he couldn't return to Dragon Bay because he didn't want to anger his parents. The next morning, Hannah yelled, Jared, get up quickly and dress presentably for once instead of looking sloppy. Mr. Saunders has taken a day off on purpose. I know, Jared replied as he opened his eyes. After having a simple breakfast, the three of them left home hurriedly. They hailed a taxi and headed to Franklin's house together. Chapter 64. Franklin lived in Phoenix Garden, which was a famous residential area in Horrington. As houses there cost at least $1 million or more, it was a place out of reach for ordinary folks. Jared, when we arrive, remember to be nice and behave respectfully. After all, we are asking him for help. Considering your situation, it's not easy to get a job, as most companies are unwilling to hire ex-convicts. Hence, you have to be aware of... In the car, Hannah kept nagging Jared, worried that he would make a mistake. Turning around from the front passenger seat, Gary put a stop to it. Enough. There's no need to keep harping on it. So what if he has gone to prison before? Does it mean that he is of questionable character? I have been friends with Franklin for a long time, so this isn't going to be an issue. He was concerned that Hannah's nagging would exasperate Jared, especially when it came to his time in prison. After all, it wasn't his fault that he ended up there. Since both of you are so close, why didn't he come and see you over the last few years? It's not like you're unaware of how much we have suffered recently. Hannah was upset. When Jared was in prison, their livelihoods were severely affected. Even then, Franklin was nowhere to be seen. Stop blaming him, as I have never told him about it, and neither does he know where we stay. Anyway, both of us have gone through a lot together. Back then, when there was a stray grenade during training, I dived and tackled him to the ground, or else he wouldn't even be alive today. Gary's pride mattered a lot to him, especially since he was a squad leader back then. Therefore, he was too embarrassed to reveal his situation to his former comrades. If it wasn't because Jared needed a job, he wouldn't even have sought Franklin's help. Mom, you know what kind of person Dad is. Once we're there, I know what I should be mindful of. When I start making money from my job, our family circumstances will definitely improve, Jared reassured Hannah. Even though Jared had $10 million in his pocket, he couldn't tell his parents about it, as there was no way he could explain it. Even if he had told them the truth, they wouldn't believe him, since his experience in prison over the last 3 years was just too bizarre. Meanwhile, on the second floor of a mansion in Phoenix Garden, Franklin, who was in his 50s, put on an old military uniform and adjusted it in front of the mirror. On the couch was a girl in her 20s. She had pretty features and a slender body. Wearing pajamas with floral prints, she was playing with her phone while lying there. Dad, have you gone mad? Why are you wearing your old uniform? The girl remarked as she glanced at Franklin. She was his only daughter, Maria Saunders. I'm going to meet an old comrade of mine from the army. That's why I've put it on. Unfortunately, my tummy is so big that it no longer fits. At that moment, a middle-aged woman entered from the kitchen with a plate of fruits. She was wearing a suit with a white shirt underneath. Combined with nude-colored stockings and high heels, she was obviously a white-collared worker. The light makeup she wore made her look younger than her age. She was Franklin's wife, Frida Lansom. She was also the sales manager of the company they owned. Franklin, who is this comrade of yours? I heard many of them had struck it rich. You should rekindle your relationships with them and get them to help us. With their assistance, we might be able to overcome this crisis of ours. Otherwise, we will go bankrupt at the rate things are going, Frida said with a grim tone as she placed the fruits on the table. Don't worry about that first. This time it's my old squad leader that's visiting. I haven't seen him for a few years, so you better be nice, Franklin snapped at Frida. Squad leader? Who knows, he might already be rich. I remember you telling me before that he saved your life once. After he left the army, he joined the government, Frida commented. Chapter 65. Yes. It's just that we have lost contact in recent years, and I don't know what happened to him. Franklin nodded. Perhaps he is already a high-ranking civil servant. When he arrives, you two can spend some quality time and reminisce about the past. Filled with delight, Frida turned to Maria. Go and get yourself changed quickly. Our guests are arriving, so you should dress up. Furthermore, this squad leader of your dad's has a son. When they arrive together, you might... Come on, Mom. Stop it. I have a boyfriend now, and you're aware of it, aren't you? You're being such a pain. Getting up from the couch, Maria headed to her bedroom with an exasperated expression. You silly girl. I'm doing this for your own good. Zane is nothing more than a sales manager. This guy is the son of a powerful official. Zane is no match for him. Frida kept nagging Maria. Ignoring her mother, Maria entered her bedroom and slammed the door shut. What a rebellious child, Frida mumbled before turning toward Franklin. Franklin, I'm going to prepare some refreshments. In the meantime, remember to make a lunch reservation at a hotel so that we can have a meal together. Sure, Franklin nodded. Soon, Jared and his family arrived. After they pressed the doorbell, Franklin opened the door quickly. The moment Gary and Franklin saw each other, they hesitated briefly before giving each other a tight hug. Squad leader, I've missed you so much. You've changed so much over the years. Even your hair is all turning gray, Franklin exclaimed with a smile. Ha! You have grown a pot-belly too. I'm amazed that you dare to wear your uniform with that body of yours. Laughing heartily, Gary gave Franklin a punch. When Franklin shifted his attention to Hannah and Jared, he was stunned by Hannah's listless eyes, as if she couldn't see anything even though her eyes were wide open. Noticing his surprise, Gary quickly introduced, This is my wife, Hannah. She lost her sight due to an illness a few years ago. Franklin said at once, Nice to meet you, Mrs. Chance. Please come in right away. Hannah nodded with a smile. Thank you. I have heard a lot about you from Gary. If not for squad leader, I wouldn't even be standing here. Franklin helped Hannah in at once. Mr. Saunders, let me do it. Jared stepped forward and supported Hannah. This is my son, Jared, Gary remarked. After glancing at Jared, Franklin said with a smile, He looks like a capable young man, just like his dad back in the day. Hearing that, Jared cast a smile. He had a good impression of Franklin, as he felt that Franklin had a genuine smile and didn't put on any airs. Nonetheless, no one noticed the momentary change in Gary and Hannah's faces when Franklin uttered the comment. Franklin, is your former squad leader here? Frida hurried out of the kitchen to welcome them with a big plate of fruits. This is my wife, Frida, Franklin introduced his wife to Gary and his family. Nice to meet you. Gary smiled politely. At that moment, Frida was stunned by how ordinary Gary's outfit was and the amount of gray hair he had. He didn't exude the authority of a powerful government official at all. When she turned to Hannah and Jared, she realized they were dressed as shabbily as ordinary folks. Have government officials nowadays dispensed with the pomp? What are you spacing out for? He is talking to you. Franklin tugged at Frida's arm when he saw her gawking. Having regained her senses, Frida quickly welcomed her guests. Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you. Chapter 66. After Gary and his family were seated on the couch, Franklin served them coffee right away. He even shouted toward the bedroom, "Maria, Mr. Chance is here. Come down quickly." "Franklin, it's all right. I'm sorry to have interrupted you on such short notice." Gary was embarrassed when he saw how welcoming Franklin was. "Don't be a stranger. After all, we haven't seen each other for many years. Therefore, just make yourself at home. I've also made lunch reservations at a hotel so that we can have a wonderful meal together," Franklin suggested as he poured some coffee for Gary. At that moment, Maria stepped into the living room. She was dressed in sports attire and had her hair tied in a ponytail, making her look youthful and vibrant. After sweeping her gaze around, she finally fixated her gaze on Jared. However, she noticed that he was dressed shabbily and looked like a country bumpkin instead of the son of a powerful government official. "Maria, greet Mr. Chance," Franklin reminded her. "Mr. Chance, nice to meet you," Maria called out insincerely. In fact, the contempt she had for them was written all over her face. "Maria, how can you—" When he noticed Maria's attitude, Franklin was about to lose his temper, but Gary stopped him. "Hi, Maria." After holding Franklin back, Gary nodded at her with a smile. When both families sat down and chat, it was obvious that Maria was feeling awkward. "Mr. Chance, I heard Franklin mention that you joined the government service after leaving the army. Now that so many years have passed, I'm sure you have achieved a very high position. Am I right?" Frida asked in a forthright manner. Her question had caused Gary to blush in embarrassment. He then replied awkwardly, "No, I've left the service." "Isn't that too early for retirement?" Frida exclaimed in shock. "Enough! Why do you have so many unnecessary questions? Are you conducting a background check?" Franklin shot her a glare. In truth, Franklin had sensed that something was off the moment Gary and his family arrived. After running a company for such a long time, he had met many government officials before. However, he didn't feel any similar sort of aura from Gary. Nevertheless, he didn't reveal his doubts because he knew what kind of person his wife was. The moment she found out that Gary was just an ordinary person, she would turn on him on the spot. "I was just being curious. Why do you have to snap at me?" Frida rolled her eyes at Franklin. After that, she continued, "Mr. Chance, what was your rank before you retired?" In the face of Frida's questions, Gary knew that it was impossible to hide it from her. Besides, since they were there to seek Franklin's help, there was no need to do so either. Hence, he answered awkwardly, "I was sacked." At that moment, Gary came clean with Franklin. Given the circumstances, he no longer cared about whether he would be humiliated. To him, his ego was no longer worth anything. When Frida heard what had happened, her smile disappeared right away. Instead, she rolled her eyes in response. On the other hand, Franklin was filled with shock. He then asked Gary, "Why didn't you tell me that you had fallen on hard times?" "That's in the past. Now that Jared is back, I'm wondering if you can help me secure a job for him." "It doesn't matter how tough the job is," Gary asked in a subservient tone. "No one dares to take in an ex-convict." Before Franklin could reply, Frida preempted him. She was now behaving like an entirely different person. Franklin's expression became solemn after he heard Gary's request. Consequently, Gary added candidly, "It's fine if it's too much trouble. Worst comes to worst, I'll get him to work in construction." Chapter 67. "Squad leader, to be honest, my company is in trouble too. If I can't overcome this crisis, I'm afraid I will go bankrupt. Therefore, I would only be impeding his career by hiring him," Franklin confessed with a sigh. Feeling embarrassed, Gary said, "Franklin, I'm sorry to have made trouble for you. Anyway, don't worry about Jared. Instead, what problems are your company facing?" "Our problems? Can you solve them?" Frida sneered. Gary blushed in humiliation. "Shut up." Franklin glared at Frida before saying apologetically, "Squad leader, ignore her bitchiness. My company has dealings with Glamorous Designs. Unfortunately, they have stopped supplying goods to us, causing our cash flow to be stuck. Consequently, I don't know how long I can hold out for. As for finding Jared a job, I'll get Maria to check with her company, since it's a conglomerate and it provides good benefits. Jared can slowly work his way up from the bottom." Visibly upset by Franklin's words, Maria retorted, "Dad, I'm nothing but a salesperson. I don't have such authority at all. You'd better not cause me any trouble." "You might not be able to do so, but isn't Zane the sales manager? Can't he hire just one person?" Franklin demanded. Before Maria could finish, Franklin threatened, "Enough! This is how it's going to be. If Zane doesn't have the capability to do it, I will have to reconsider his compatibility with you." Maria fell silent in response. All she could do was pout in anger. "Franklin, it took a lot of effort for Maria to join that company. Aren't you just causing unnecessary trouble for her? Besides, does that company even accept ex-convicts in the first place?" Frida remonstrated with Franklin after shooting Jared a glance. Despite feeling upset at being called an ex-convict, Jared kept his temper in check. After all, he felt that Franklin was a good man. "Dad, let me be frank here. I'll get him in the door, but whether or not he can pass the interview will be up to his own capabilities." Maria rolled her eyes before returning to her bedroom. "Squad leader, please don't mind her attitude. That girl has a really nasty attitude," Franklin explained to Gary awkwardly. Gary smiled wryly in response. Given the dire circumstances, he was in no position to be upset about her unfriendly attitude. "Franklin, I appreciate what you have done. Anyway, I have something on, and I'll have to take my leave." Gary was cognizant that there was no point in staying any longer. The last thing he wanted was to cause trouble for Franklin and his family. "Squad leader, why don't we have lunch first, as I've already made reservations?" Franklin added quickly. "It's all right. Next time, perhaps." Gary waved his hand. At the same time, Jared helped Hannah up. Despite being aware of his wife and daughter's hostility to his guests, there was little Franklin could do about it other than smile apologetically. "When the opportunity arises, the two of us should have a drink together." When Franklin escorted his guests out, Frida sat on the sofa and couldn't be bothered. "Mr. Saunders, what's the name of the company that owed you money?" Jared asked the moment he walked out the door. "It's called Glamorous Designs. Do you know anyone there?" Franklin asked out of curiosity. Jared shook his head. "No, but I'll try and collect the money for you." "I appreciate the thought, but you'd better not do anything illegal after having just been released. Instead, just take good care of your parents. As for my problems, you don't have to worry about it." Thinking that Jared was probably a gangster, Franklin assumed that he was going to collect the debt by force. After all, Jared had just been released from prison. Chapter 68. Jared replied with a smile, "Mr. Chance, don't worry. I won't do anything stupid." Chuckling, Franklin patted Jared on his shoulder. "I appreciate your willingness to help." After leaving Franklin's house, Gary let out a gentle sigh. "Jared, Mr. Saunders is a good man. If you manage to get a job tomorrow, you have to work hard so that others would not look down on you." Evidently, Gary was hurt by the treatment Franklin's wife and daughter gave him. Unfortunately, he had resigned himself to the fact that his incompetence had forced him to seek help from others. "I understand." Jared nodded. Feeling disheartened, Hannah remarked, "What's going to happen to Hilda? After what transpired today, we can't be asking for their help again." They had agreed to help Hilda find a job, but now they didn't even have the chance to bring it up. In response, Gary lowered his head and lit a cigarette in silence. Evidently, he didn't know how he was going to break the news to Chloe. "Mom, Dad, don't worry about it. I'll think of a way to help Hilda. If I can land a job in the company, I will help her secure a job there too," Jared reassured his parents. "I guess that's all we can do." Gary nodded. After hailing a taxi, they hurried back home. Inside the car, Jared sent a message to Tommy. He related Franklin's situation and instructed Tommy to get Glamorous Designs to pay up. After that, he kept his phone and closed his eyes to rest. Soon, they arrived at the entrance of their residential area, only to find Hilda pacing about anxiously. Curious, Jared asked, "Hilda, what are you doing here?" "Jared, Just when she was about to explain, she held her tongue when she saw Gary and Hannah alight from the taxi. At the sight of Hilda, Gary assumed that she was waiting to ask about the job. Blushing in embarrassment, he said, "Jared, you should go ahead and talk to Hilda. Meanwhile, I'll head home first with your mom." Gary couldn't bring himself to explain to her. After all, he was an elder and had failed to deliver what he had confidently promised the day before. After watching his parents leave, Jared inquired, "Hilda, did something happen?" Teary-eyed, Hilda explained, "Jared, I'm scared. The debt collectors are after me. Hence, I'm worried that my mom will find out. Calm down, Hilda. I'm right here. When they come, I'll deal with them for you," Jared comforted her. "Jared, please don't get into a fight. I don't want you to be locked up again because of me." Even though Jared was the only person Hilda could rely on, she didn't want history to repeat itself on her account. "Don't worry, there won't be any violence." Jared smiled slightly. While they were talking, an SUV suddenly screeched to a halt in front of them. From it, a group of 5 burly men alighted. One of them wore a big gold chain and sported a crew cut. The expression he carried was especially ferocious. The moment Hilda saw the men, she quickly hid behind Jared. Their leader, the one wearing the gold chain, asked, "Girl, have you prepared the money? If you don't pay up today, I'll confiscate everything you have at home." I don't have it. Can you give me a few more days?" Hilda answered meekly. "No, not a single day more. If you have nothing valuable at home, we will take you with us. You look decent, so I think you should be worth a pretty penny." The moment he finished speaking, the leader ignored Jared and tried to grab Hilda. Chapter 69. However, the moment he reached out, Jared grabbed his hand. "I'll pay what she owes you, so keep your hands away from her," Jared warned him calmly. "You?" The leader scrutinized Jared briefly. When he saw that Jared's outfit didn't cost more than 200, he sneered. "Do you know how much she owes us?" 1 million, Jared replied. More than that," the leader scoffed. "How can that be? Last week you told me that I only needed to repay 1 million, Hilda questioned in shock. "That was last week. Have you forgotten about the interest? It's now 1,300,000 and not a penny less," the despicable man declared with a smirk. Hilda was stupefied that her debt had jumped by 300,000 in 1 week. Even if she was a money-printing machine, she wouldn't be able to keep up with its pace. "Fine, I'll pay you 1,300,000, Jared remarked plainly. The leader was stunned at how readily Jared agreed to it. Hilda, too, couldn't believe her ears as she looked at Jared in disbelief. "Jared, where are you going to get the money?" Hilda knew that there was no way Jared would have so much money given that he had just been released from prison and didn't even have a job. When the leader heard Hilda's words, he glared at Jared. "Kid, are you sure you have the money? Do you know what the consequences are for messing with me?" Just as he spoke, the man unsheathed a dagger. At the sight of the dagger, Hilda paled, and she stayed close to Jared. "I will keep my word. All you have to do is to come with me to the bank where I'll withdraw the money." Unfazed by the threats, Jared was a sea of calm. When the man saw how composed Jared was, he couldn't help but admire his courage. "Fine. You've got guts, kid. So I'll believe you this once and go with you to the bank." The moment he finished speaking, he stepped aside to make way. After giving his men a look, one of them opened the car door. "Let's go. Get in." The leader gestured with his head. Turning around, Jared instructed softly, "Hilda, you should head home now. Don't tell your mom or my parents about this. I'll be back in a short while." "Jared." Holding onto Jared's arm, Hilda gave him a concerned look. "Don't worry. I'll be fine." After smiling faintly at her, he turned and got into the car. Watching the car leave, Hilda could feel her tears running down her cheeks. She was worried sick about Jared after the men took him. Soon the car arrived in front of a bank. "Remember, don't try anything funny. We'll be waiting outside for you," the leader warned. Disregarding his words, Jared walked right into the bank. Considering how crowded it was inside, Jared had no choice but to queue. "Sir, you can use the ATM to withdraw money. There's no need for you to queue," a bank staff told Jared politely. "I'm withdrawing a big sum which the ATM doesn't allow me to," Jared responded with a cordial smile. "Sir, may I know how much money you are intending to withdraw?" the staff asked. "More than $1 million. Just as he spoke, those people queuing up before him turned around. After all, $1 million was a massive sum indeed. Chapter 70. "Jared?" At that moment, a fashionably dressed lady in heavy makeup called out to him from the queue. She was wearing a pair of sunglasses that was so big that it covered half her face. "And you are?" Jared furrowed his brows slightly as he scrutinized the lady. "It's me, Delilah Landry." The lady took off her sunglasses. Jared suddenly remembered. "Oh, it's you. I almost couldn't recognize you." Delilah was Jared's classmate from high school. In fact, both of them even shared a table. Back then, she had a terrible dress sense and was a far cry from how she looked now. After scanning Jared from head to toe, Delilah sneered, "I heard you went to jail. When did you get out?" Delilah had brought up his prison sentence on purpose. Obviously, she was looking to denigrate him in public. When both of them sat together in school, she had even written him a love letter. After all, Jared came from a decent background as his father worked for the government. For the same reason, Jared was popular with the girls. Nonetheless, Jared had ignored her because she wasn't attractive at all back then. "It's been a couple of days since my release," Jared answered candidly. "You're withdrawing $1 million despite just coming out of prison? You must be rich," Delilah remarked with a snigger. Without elaborating, all Jared did was smile. Then he changed the topic and asked, "When did you come to Horrington? I heard that you dropped out after high school." "That's right, I did. However, I am now more successful than a university graduate like you." Just as she spoke, she pointed at a fat, middle-aged man sitting on a chair and gloated, "That's my boyfriend. He owns a company and has tens of millions in assets. Today, he's getting a card for me, and I will be in charge of his money from now on." A smug expression was plastered on Delilah's face. Even though the middle-aged man looked older than her father, she didn't see anything wrong with it. All that mattered to her was that the man was rich. Glancing at the fat, middle-aged man, Jared let out a faint smile. "In that case, congratulations on finding a rich boyfriend." Even though Jared was smiling innocuously, Delilah was struck by a sense of scorn. In fact, she felt as if Jared was mocking her. "Sir, if you want to withdraw more than $500,000, you have to make an appointment beforehand. Do you have one?" After learning that Jared was an ex-convict, the bank staff spoke in a harsh tone. "It's urgent, so I didn't make an appointment. Can you help me out this time?" Jared inquired. "Jared, why do you need $1 million so urgently? Judging by your looks, you don't seem to have that much money. Are you trying to make a fool of yourself here?" Delilah ridiculed Jared. Ignoring her, Jared took out his card and handed it over to the staff. "I have $10 million inside and just want to withdraw $1,300,000. Can you make an exception? $10 million? Who are you kidding? You're nothing but an ex-convict. How is it possible for you to have so much money?" Delilah continued her mockery of Jared. At the same time, the bank staff began to grow impatient. "Even if you have $20 million, you will have to follow the bank's procedure. You can't—" Before the staff finished her sentence, she caught a glimpse of Jared's card and widened her eyes in disbelief. The card was given to Jared by William, the richest man in Horrington. William's cards had a special mark printed on them. Therefore, the staff recognized it at once. Since Jared was holding a card belonging to the Sullivan family, the staff instantly knew that he was no ordinary person.